Thanks very much, Sarah. So, yes, I work on our financial markets team at Forum for the Future, leading work on infrastructure and built environment finance. So, just an overview. So, I was going to kick off with an overview of feed-in tariffs and renewable heat incentives. I understand you might have had quite a bit of that this morning, so I'll scale back on that and then look at some actual costs and returns from different technologies at different scales. What the importance of hurdle rates are, so that's where investors and different projects have different rates of returns which are necessary to get investment. The different risks and uncertainties that come from different stages of renewables projects and how you finance through those stages. And then what is some examples of public sector projects which are viable for you, and where you can actually get some capital for investment from. Then to look at ways of sharing those costs, risks and benefits, which don't necessarily mean that you have to do it all yourself. You can work in partnership and with others. And then particularly looking at some of the work we've been doing on how you share those benefits and risks and involve the wider community in renewable energy projects. And then a bit of some thoughts about future trends in renewable energy, particularly at the community level. So to go back to basics, you have three stages at which you incur costs on renewable energy projects which need financing. The development stage, which is to do with feasibility, planning, raising the finance, the cost of capital that you borrow money at, for example, or it has a cost associated with it. Then you get into the operation if you're successful to get through that stage, which means you have costs from maintenance, insurance, etc., which last for 20, 25 years. And then at the end of life from decommissioning and scrapping any remaining technology. So the exciting part, the operating renewable revenue streams from renewable projects. Now we have the generation tariff and the export tariff for electricity projects, and the renewable heat incentive starting in April next year, as confirmed by the spending review for renewable heat projects. And from any project which generates energy which is used on site, you of course get the avoided energy costs as a benefit, which is an equal revenue stream because you're saving money off your energy bills. So just very quickly to go through an example of that in practice, if you look at a school PV scale project, if it was before using 40,000 kilowatt hours a year, then you put a PV on the roof, say it's got a peak output to 23 kilowatts, then it costs £85,000 to get that installed and running. It generates 20,000 kilowatts of electricity, and 50% of that is used on site. What does that do for a balance sheet for a school? Whereas previously they were buying their electricity at 10p per kilowatt hour, so therefore costing £4,000 a year. Then from the energy savings from off their bills by using on-site, they save £1,000. From the feed-in tariffs, that's a combined generation and export tariff, they get another £6,580 minus your maintenance cost for the panels a year, and you actually end up with a surplus every year. So your school's now earning over £3,000 in total by having the PV instead of buying all the electricity. So over 25 years is the important part for financing. It means that it will get a revenue of £200,000 to £350,000. A net profit, so that's less the startup cost of £85,000, of £115,000 to £250,000. Payback of 10 to 11 years, and a return on investment per year of 9 to 13%. The variance there is due to the fact of the unknown of the retail price index. So feed-in tariffs and renewable heat incentives will go up and down by the change in the retail price index each year for future payments. So inflation is obviously unknown for the next 20 to 25 years, therefore we don't know what they're going to be. Some other technologies and their typical capital costs. Oh, thanks, sir. So a weir hydro, so quite a large hydro scheme, costs £300,000. A small scale pictured there of a mill hydro, so conversion of an old mill, £30,000. Some solar projects there ranging in costs, and wind as well, from a small police station there of 15 kilowatts right up to a community wind turbine at 1.5 megawatts. So what rates of returns do those projects generate? This is the key bit for financing. This is based on a report by Friends of the Earth and Arup Consulting, looking at a modelled but detailed modelling of all those projects. And you can see that for electricity, the feed-in tariffs do generate between 8 and 16% return on investment each year. Now, the variance there is partly due to changes in technology costs, but also because different technologies have different necessary hurdle rates in which they need to gain investment. Things like community wind are much higher risk to go through expensive development stages from planning and feasibility studies compared to a small solar project. So once they get operating, have higher returns to cover those risk costs. Heat projects based on the original responses for the renewable heat incentive are much more variable. So municipal anaerobic digestion, which is using waste biomaterial to generate gas, at a very large, at 5 megawatt scale, gets very high returns, whereas at a farm scale, there's almost no returns. Most of that is due to the fact you can actually pay people to dispose of the waste, so that's an additional revenue stream for municipal anaerobic digestion. The top and bottom ones there, so domestic solar thermal and home air source heat pumps, you can see quite a varied rate of return for households from different technologies. So maybe these renewable heat incentives will be looked at. So the important part is hurdle rates. What is the minimum acceptable rate of return for a project to gain investment? This varies between investors and may vary between technologies as well, as discussed, from different risk factors. So you may have a project which leaps over the bank's hurdle rate or falls slightly short. So what affects investors' hurdle rates? So the hard-nosed factors, ones which are sort of commercially driven. The uncertainty of returns, we'll look at a second in what the factors that cause those uncertainties. The cost of capital, so how much the cost to get the money raised in the first place, i.e. how much interest you have to pay for on a loan. And does the installation have an effect on the site value? So adding value to a property or an asset will come into the factor of what the project's hurdle rate is. Important but often overlooked factors include social and environmental benefits and how people value those, how they affect people's status, whether they actually like the fact they've got renewable technologies on their buildings. That includes commercial companies as well, not just householders. People like to be self-sufficient in energy, they value that, but also people don't like the hassle of going through having works done to properties. So look at uncertainties and the risks and that create financial risks. In a development stage, you've got planning to go through, we just heard, can vary considerably from a small scale PV panels, might not need planning, up to your municipal waste plants, which certainly do. Your feasibility stage again, getting grid connections, so large scale obviously needs access to the electricity grid and your financing costs. Once you get operating, you need to, well, before that, but in the operational stage, you need to look at what the retail price index might do. So that will affect your fit levels. Your energy prices in the future are unknown. How much you pay for feedstocks or biomass, for example. How your kit's going to perform. Will the environment vary? Will a building go up that shades panels, affects wind flows? How much will maintenance cost? Can you insure against theft and damage in the future? Can you still maintain your grid connection, and will you still own the site? What happens at the end of life? In 25 years, how much is it going to cost to decommission a solar field, for example? How much scrap value will it have, and will it affect the site value post the project? So to look at some typical hurdle rates for different types of investors. Householders, due to lots of those factors, particularly the ones which are often overlooked, like status and valuing environmental effects, they have a very high-ranging hurdle rate. They may think, I just want to do it anyway, so they've got a low 3% hurdle rate. They may say, I'm only doing this if it makes me loads of money. So I'm going to say, it needs to make me 20% a year. Businesses are kind of similar, but more hard-nosed. So, And also here comes into lots of it the cost of capital. So a small business may have to pay a lot more to borrow money than a large company like Tesco's, for example.